Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Let's Play Dark Souls. Awesome. Alright, so I have a little over 4,000 souls now, so we are going to purchase an item heal from him. He does sell you talismans as well, so if you don't know where that hidden talisman is, or if you can't remember off the top of your head, you can watch my previous video. It's at the beginning of the video. If not, it's no big deal. He does sell you this Thurland talisman, which is a good starting talisman. If you don't plan to have a high faith character by any means, this talisman will be great for you. This has better stat scaling, but the reward for it you don't start getting until you have like around 20 faith. So, take your pick between the two. I'll probably be coming back to get this Thurland talisman at a later time.
Be effective.
But now that we've talked to everybody, I can go to the bonfire, do some more things real fast, and then we will get started on combat after a quick tutorial. Ooh, he looks spiffy. So here we have an Attune Magic ability. So at the top here, you'll see that here is the amount of slots that we have. So here we need to select this option first before we can go through what we have. Then down here, this is saying that we need to have 12 faith in order to use this, and at the moment we only have 11 faith. So I'm going to have to put 1 point into faith. Heal is something I would highly encourage brand new players to actually go out of your way to get, or maybe even grind for a bit. This is not the best place to grind. I'll show you where I would encourage beginners to start off grinding to get some souls to buy that miracle heal. You don't absolutely need it, and this bonfire here will actually give you 10 Estus flasks, which you can see down here, versus a traditional 5 that other bonfires will. We'll go into that more later, again, as that becomes relevant. You can also level up here. We do not have the souls to level up because I just spent it all on healing. So we need 741 souls before I can put my points into faith. Alright, so quick tutorial, and then we're going to get started. This is the start menu, so here is our general inventory. This means that we can use items in the real world, or we can drop them on the ground. That's really all that we can do from here. So this first slot here is, we're going to call it our consumables, although not everything here is consumable. Like, we start off with this. But here, if you're wondering, like, if I'm switching up what can be used in my square button, this list right here, and only this list, is what my square button can be used by. Here is a crafting section. I don't have any crafting materials, so I'll go into detail about that later. Here we have the keys. This is extremely useful if you're not sure where to go in the game. Going to your keys section and reading the description on your keys will give you a better understanding of where you should or should not be going. Same thing too, if you pick up a key and you're just like, I have no idea what to do with that key, and I want to know where I'm supposed to go, you can read that key and that will kind of guide you to the next place, but you should probably finish out the area that you're in. So, yes, that being said, I don't really pay too much attention to the keys, because I was always one of those people, like, I remembered which doors were locked and where I wanted to go, or when I read something as, like, you know, the Big Pilgrim's key, I was like, oh, that's what you used to open up that Big Pilgrim door. Got it. Here is a listing of our spells, miracles, and pyromancies. That's about it. There's other ones that you can learn without having to buy them, so that's why there's an entire page dedicated to just them. Here is just your weapons. This is if you would like to drop something on the ground for another player, or if you maybe want to bait your opponent into something silly. You know, like, oh, what's this item? I'm going to go pick up this item, and then you'll run up from behind them and backstab them. That's something that you can do. Here is just, oh, I'm sorry, this page will include any type of weapon, any type of catalyst, talisman, pyromancy flame, bow, crossbow, and shields. I think that's it. This arrow page is only going to consume of arrows and bolts, or not consume, consist of arrows and bolts. So if you want to see what any of your projectiles are, this is the page for that. That is different than your spells and miracles and pyromancy page, although they are considered like a ranged attack. They are not a bolt or a crossbow or bow. So Wow, a bolt or an arrow, so they will not be here. Here is just specifically our armor section. It does pre-categorize everything. I think there is a way for you to customize this. I never do, but it will put sets, together for you, and there is a select order. It kind of makes sense, but not really. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but you will see me going in and out of that from time to time. This last page is just our rings. This also we get the item description on your rings, and at the moment we don't know what this ring does. So yes, this page, the very fun page. Actually, you know what? I might have actually gone over this. This is anything that can be in our right hand. This is considered your main hand in this game. So here you can see that it has two different types of weapons. I'm actually going to unequip that because I don't plan on ever really using it. Here's our left hand. Again, here's the two slots, and it's shield, and then they also have a parrying dagger. You can also put a talisman, pyromancy flame, or catalyst in either one of these hands. That's just a matter of preference. This is just used for headpieces. This is just used for torso. Same goes for gloves and leggings. These 5 slots here will be used for what can be used with our square button. And this is kind of done via Estus Flask, because they assume that you're always going to have your Estus Flask on a quick cast ability. This is 2 different slots for arrows, so if you primarily want to just use a bow, they do give you the option to have 2 different arrows that you could switch between. So you could have, we haven't found them yet, but poison arrows and then like regular arrows. That way you can poison your opponent and then switch over to like your main sources of damage. Same goes for crossbow bolts if you want to focus on crossbows, or you could have one of each. You could have a bow in this hand and a crossbow in your offhand, and be switching between them depending on what range you're at. And then these 2 slots are for rings, and only 2 rings can be equipped at any given time. Last 2 things I need to explain. We're going to do this as quickly as possible. Up here in the upper right will tell you what type of weapon classification it's considered. This isn't always 100% accurate because there are items like the butcher's knife, which counts as an axe. But it will generally tell you kind of what the movesite is or what to expect from the weapon. Daggers are, a small kind of carving weapon. You nick at your opponent a bunch of times or you critically stab them. So the attack type, there are different types of attack types in this game. There is regular, which is kind of standard damage against anything and everything. There is blunt, which is good against hard armors and breaking guards. There's slashing, which is super effective against cloth armor, as well as like unarmored foes. If someone's naked or has exposed flesh, it's kind of a better thing. Now, mind you, some of the enemies you're going to be seeing, you're going to be like, oh, they have exposed flesh, but your slash damage isn't doing a lot to them. Yeah, there's a reason behind that. It's their armor that counts, not necessarily the exposed flesh. However, that first boss in the game was just a big fleshy monster, so that's why my weapon was doing decent damage against him. Nothing spectacular. And then there is thrust. Oh, speaking of which, so there's our strike damage because it's a mace, big, heavy, bludgeoning weapon. And then thrust, which is our wing spear. Thrust is great for penetrating harder armors. It's decent, it's great at backstabs. It's kind of... I don't know fully how to commit to it. These are your straight stabbing attacks is the best way. They can do a little bit more damage. They're great for interrupting opponents' attacks. They generally have your longer range. There's a benefit to each type of weapon. Certain weapons are great against other enemies versus others. So like skeletons are super weak against strike, but they're resilient against thrust and slashing. Now, this dagger actually has a critical modifier of 147, meaning that it does increased damage when I do a critical strike. So that's why it was doing damage to the skeletons in the first place. Here is going to be where things get divided. If you're looking at a weapon or something offensive, you want to look at this side primarily. Unless you're huge on two-handing, you're probably not going to be using this dagger to block anything. So here you're going to see that you have physical damage, and weapons can do magical, fire, and lightning damage as well, and then they have a critical modifier. Most weapons will only have a critical modifier of 100. That is like your standard. I've never seen less than 100. Which is also kind of interesting that they never put any weapons like that in the game, now that I'm talking about it out loud. Um, Here, this plus 11 comes from your parameter bonuses. This means that these stats here are strength, dex, faith, or magic, and faith in that order. And here we're seeing that we're getting an E ranking, so that's the lowest ranking that you can get as a bonus. And we're getting that in strength, and then we're getting a B rank from dex. So because of our dexterity being higher, dexterity being 15, and even our strength being 9, we are getting bonus damage added on to this weapon. That would be the same thing if this weapon does magic damage and it has a magic modifier, it'll get plus points there. Fire and lightning can't be added here. Maybe if I enchant my weapon, or if I enchant my weapon, maybe then it would show up there, but I'm not sure. I've never actually really looked into that. Here we have the effects. This is bleeding, poison, divine, and occult. Divine works specifically well against undead things, and occult works specifically well against living things. So if you wanted to do a build, where your weapon was based upon if you're fighting something living, something dead, there you go. Required parameters, again, strength, dexterity, magic, and faith. We do have enough requirements to meet everything. However, if we get onto this wing spear, you'll see that this strength is in red, which means that we can't use it one-handed at the moment. And then same thing, because we don't have the strength that meets the requirements for it, that's why this is also in red, because we're actually getting a negative number by not having enough strength for it. Again, if you're two-handing it, this is why there's these here. These are generally pretty unimportant until you get down to shields. Shields, these can be a bigger thing, because here you're not going to want to really care what the attack type damage is, unless you're using a shield as a weapon. Yes, you can do that in this game. No, I will not be demonstrating it. Same thing, you have small shields and you have large shields. All the shields are considered strike damage. Yes, you can strike or piercing. There's a few shields that have spikes on them. Yes, you can strike with your shield in your left hand. Depends on the shield, though. Most of them will parry or have a different attack, which, I'll probably go into later. Here you'll want to see what the resistances are. So as you can see, this Kakita shield, or Catechus shield, I don't know what to call it. You have certain numbers here, and this will mean that it will block 85% of physical damage that gets swung at you. So if they're going to hit you for 100, you're only going to take 15 damage if you manage to block it with this shield, which is a little bit better than our buckler, which stands at 78. Generally, by the way, I'm sorry, blue means that the numbers are going up, red means that the numbers are going down. Everything else is, it's just the same, so they don't bother highlighting it. So seeing that this number over here is red, you might think like, oh, this shield isn't as good. You need to be looking over here. It's a shield. Although the fire resistance does go down, our lightning resistance, our magic, and our physical resistances all go up. Stability means that as you were struck, your shield, the higher your stability number, the better. It means that more of the blow will be absorbed into your endurance with a higher stability. And one of the best parts about this is that the more your shield is struck, if you run out of endurance, you'll actually get staggered, and while you're staggered, you can take more damage. So the higher the stability, usually the better. I can't think of a reason why you would want a low stability shield. Unless you really like, messing with people. Alright, so that's it. Need to get started. Desperately need to get started. If you keep talking to that guy there, he's called the Crestfallen Warrior, that very first guy I talked... Well, not very first, but first guy thing I talked to. I can't take this. No response. She cannot speak. Reinforce Estus Celeste. It's going to be great. Aww. Fire...